Okay, it's come down to this. It's come down to this. What is better? Delivery apps, doing a side hustle with delivery apps, or working a retail job? Um, there's a lady that I know. There's a lady that's sure all that glitters is gold. That's from Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven. But this lady, she is about 3 years older than I am. So she's getting close to 70, the big 7-0. It's so funny. I still remember when I got close to the big 1-0 at 10 years old. But memory still works. But anyway, so she was asking, what is better? We both started with Grubhub. When I started with Grubhub, she'd already been there about a year. She worked in the Los Angeles region. I got hired to work in the Pasadena region, which is now, it's all one big region. It's like Southern California is one region. But she is currently not doing well with these apps. And they're saying that the areas are all oversaturated. The delivery costs are too high. And a lot of the customers are just going to pick up their food themselves, or they have someone pick it up. Hey, on your way home, stop by the pizza place and pick up our pizza. And some of the pizza restaurants are offering some kind of incentives to use them versus Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash. But she works for, right now, she works for DoorDash and Grubhub. DoorDash and Grubhub. And she was saying that she was thinking about trying to get a job in the mall. You know, Christmas is coming up pretty soon. Maybe you can get a seasonal, and then maybe they'll keep her on afterwards. She says it's hard for a senior to get a job, and that's likely true. Maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll go out and do a challenge and try to get a job as a senior. And I can talk about some of the ups and the downs, and the ups and the downs, and the downs and the ups and the middles. But she was saying that she thinks right now she's making about the same as if she was working for a job in the mall. And I said, I don't think you are, because she told me how much she was making per day. She does like I did. I used to always work 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and I'd work 6 to 7 days a week. But back then I was making $25 to $30 an hour. So making $250, $300, and you just drive around yourself. Boo-ba-doo-boo, no boss, really. Every now and then a restaurant might be a little bit rude. A customer might be a little bit rude. Before COVID, we had to go and hand them the food. And if I did a really good presentation at the door, sometimes they'd say, hey, wait a minute, give me a second. And they'd run in and they'd go, here's I tipped you on that, but here's $5 more. Thank you so much for whatever. But now we just leave it at the door, push a button on our app, click on something on our app, and take off. We don't get much of a chance to be a salesman, saleswoman, sales professional. We represent the company. When I used to manage restaurants, and I used to manage pizza restaurants, I tell people, look, you are the pizza company. You are Hungry Howie's. You are Papa John's, whatever company I was working for as a manager. Remember, they call on the phone, and you bring them the food. They never come in. They don't know anyone here. They don't know, is the store clean? Do we have a restroom available? Is there debris? Do we need to get the little Disneyland pan in the Disneyland room and sweep up all the cigarettes in the parking lot? They don't know anything about it. All they know is you. You are, let's say, Papa John's. So make sure that everything, you got the little cup with the dipping sauce, and make sure you're very nice. Bring the food up there and hot and ready. And hi, how are you? Not hot and ready. That's Little Caesars, but you got it's hot right there. They used to want us to open the box. That's kind of gone away now. You used to reach over and say, "Hi, I'm delivering you a pepperoni pizza." And nobody does that. That's stupid. But I'd always say, "Hey, I got your pizzas and your breadsticks for you." And as one of the delivery people in my store, it was always great if we were short drivers, and that would happen sometimes. So when I can't come in, and the assistant manager would call me, and hey, David, I have no one to work. He didn't have an automobile. He said, I don't have anyone to drive tonight. Right? We're really busy. We got 3 drivers. We need 5. And I said, tell you what, I'll come in. And I'm on salary, so I don't get any extra money for coming in, but I get tips. So I would drive, and people say, "Are you the manager?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm out here. We're trying to make sure we get those pizzas out and make sure nice." But I don't want to tell them as a manager, because they may not want to give me any money, thinking, "Well, you're the manager, you're the owner, you don't get any money." But she was just saying that since she started, it's gotten worse. Now, when she first started, it was her, and I think her name is Wendy, and I think her brother's name is like not Anvil, but something like that, like Irville or something like that. And he's about 3 years old. I think he is 70 right now. 70, the big 70, not 7 years old. But he would go. They would share one vehicle, and she would drive. I don't know if he didn't have a license, or maybe some people have to clear a traffic infraction, some of them maybe like a DUI, which might be a misdemeanor or maybe a felony. But he maybe had to clear that. But they would drive together in one vehicle. Then it got to be too slow, so now they're both out there driving because they share an apartment. I don't know if they have any other relatives or whatever, but they do share a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere. I think it's in West Covina. But so she has to work and he has to work. And she says, well, I'm working about 10 hours a day. I'm still doing the 11 to 9. She's, I'm off on Tuesdays. And I always work Tuesdays because Tuesday's supposed to be the slowest day in the restaurant industry. So what happens? The drivers don't want to drive. So if it's slow, but there's still some money, I might get, a really good day because no one else is driving. We'll have to see. I'll tell you how it goes tomorrow if I decide to drive tomorrow. I'm going to drive today in about 4 hours. Wow, that's weird. Exactly 4 hours. In 4 hours, I'll be out there driving. Just to see how it is. So anyway, so she said she's still doing the same thing, but she's making a lot less money. She said, I may need to go get a retail job because maybe I can make more money in that. And she said she used to manage a gift shop in a hospital, small gift shop. I don't know. Sometimes they'll have like a store where they'll have like little food and they sell medical supplies, and they have a gift shop separate where they sell things you can give to the people that are staying in the hospital. Flowers maybe, or cards, or a little teddy bear that says "Get well," that kind of stuff. So she does that, but so she did that before. So now she's thinking about using that old resume. And she said, I don't know what to put on the new resume, but it will just say, you currently are working in the gig economy. You've been doing it for the last 9 years. Before that, boom, and ordinarily that'll suffice. And I told you I used to hire people a lot when I managed a food court. So I had 3 different restaurants and a beer garden. I had 3 established restaurants and our own independent beer garden. I had to kind of get people for all of those places. So people would come in, I try to find out where I think they would be best placed, and we talk about it. And, if they're 16, of course, no beer garden. So maybe they maybe they could work at Wiener Schnitzel. We had a Wiener Schnitzel, a Baskin Robbins, and a Hungry Howie's Pizza. So she was going to do that. She said, well, I don't know if I'd make more money there. And I said, well, how much are you making now? She was, I'm making about $70 a day. I said, you'll make more money doing retail. And she said, well, how do you know? How do you know I'd do better than that? Isn't that about minimum wage? I said, no, minimum wage is not $7 an hour. Plus, you got to take into consideration your gas and things. So, I did all on here. So, what is better? Should you work a driving job like us? Now, sometimes you will get lucky and you'll pull down a $30 order. I had one yesterday, it was $30. Well, that's very rare to get a $30 in 30 minutes. That's rare. I think when I started, it was about 25 to 30. Now, if I had to guess, I did figure out I'm about $14 an hour. So that's not good. That's like the only advantages I have. That's taking into consideration my gas, subtracting my gas from my total. But the advantages I have, hey David, can you be on set in an hour? We need somebody to get to go and do. Yep, I'm on my way. And I log out. But if I'm sitting there working in retail, hi, would you like to buy some candles? We have candles here. That candle smells like avocado toast. Then I may not get that flexibility. I still would go, but I'd probably get the axe. I said, look, I got this thing came up and I really gotta go. And I would try to tap dance it. We're a little slow. Is it okay if I go? I'll do anything. You want me to come in a busy day or whatever, someone calls in sick, put me on call. I had on-call jobs, they're pretty good. Every day I had to call if it was available. I'd call in, and I usually get about 30 hours a week doing that. But let's just take a look. I'm using my computer right here, my big computer. I was doing something. And I'll have this video out today. This video will come out today. Today is Monday. I had a manager say, never tell them what day it is because this video might be showing 3 years from now. Well, who cares, right? But anyways, let's take a look. So this is the drive. This is the drive column, and this is the retail column. So she thinks that she's making at $7 an hour about what minimum wage is. But remember, you got to take away about $10 in gas. She said she uses about 2 gallons. Let's say $10. She's currently making about $6. It'll probably be backwards, but she makes about $6 an hour. Backwards 6. Now, she thinks that that's about the same as retail. Now, retail is not $7 an hour in California. It's $17.86. Now, if she worked for a food restaurant like McDonald's, if she worked for McDonald's or maybe Wiener Schnitzel or Carl's Jr.'s, or maybe she works for Sonic, some one of those. But if it's a corporate location with more. I think it's got to be more than 60 locations. Is that right? And maybe more than 60 locations worldwide, nationwide, whatever. They have to pay you $20 an hour for, and that's not bad money if you think about that. You know, full time, 800 before taxes. That's not bad. But so anyway, so if she was to do this, is to dedicate the same number of hours to a retail job in the mall, she's thinking about trying to get a job. There's a Hallmark store there, and I used to work at Hallmark when I was my first real job. Before that, I was a feed the dog, mow the lawn, that kind of, and I made pretty good money being as a kid doing that. Back then, if you could make $10 in a day, and way back then, that wasn't bad. 50 years ago, for a kid just going to feed. I open the can and put the dog food in there, pet the dogs, give them water, take the mail, put it in the box hidden on the porch, pick up the newspapers, put them beside that box, and I made $4 a day. That was a lot of money back then. I mean, that takes me 20 minutes. I can ride my bike. Maybe it would be 20 minutes because I play with the dog. But okay, let's take a look. So I told you what she would be doing. She'd do about $6 an hour there. She thinks, because we don't think how much money it is now, inflation, everything. My first job I had was $1.65 an hour, and then the minimum wage went up to $2.10. And I said, wow, $2 an hour? I can make, if I work 8 hours, I can make $16. And sometimes I would during the summers, weekends. I could do it. So let's take a look at retail. Retail, 8 hours at $17.86. Plus, now there's no overtime when we drive. So those extra 2 hours are now going to be overtime, which is tax-free. Remember, we don't get paid taxes on overtime. So that would be $26.79. So that's a total day of $196.46. So she's making approximately $60. So this is $136 more per day. No wear and tear on her vehicle. She gets a break. She gets to do whatever. But she's going to have a boss, and she's going to lose her flexibility in her employment. But we are oversaturated. We have way too many drivers. When I first started in the passing era, we had 50 drivers. That was our goal, to get 50 drivers hired. No one really knew what Grubhub was. That was the first one I worked for. And now I think they said we got about 30,000 in this area. So kind of got bigger. Now, a lot of people did sign up, and they never work. Some people signed up, and they work a Monday through Friday job, and they maybe say, well, I'm going to go and work Saturday 8 hours, and so they work 8 hours a week or whatever. Some people signed up during COVID because we were allowed to work during COVID, and we were considered mission essential, or whatever we call it, essential. We were allowed to work, but it's not like it used to be. We're not making $30 an hour. We're not making $25. These are guaranteed. We tell you you'll make $25 an hour, and they got in trouble for that. I think Grubhub did get sued for that, because who's making the $30 an hour? I could have 1 hour that's $30 back then, or back then. I probably didn't often make $30 an hour. But I also worked for catering. I did catering orders, and I could do 2 of those a day sometimes, and then maybe 100. One might be 180, one might be 110. So you're pulling in. Sometimes I pull in $300 a day or more doing them, and those were really easy. It's two catering jobs, and then if I decided to, back then you had to log in as, it was called like Diners on the Run or something like that, and then it became Grubhub for Works, and it was like a catering company, and they would have their own, their own catering side of the house, and they'd have their own account, and then they would order. A lot of times it would be pharmaceutical reps would give food to talk to all the different doctors and nurses and whoever might administer a drug or an appliance, maybe like an injection, how to do this injectable. And they'd do that, and they'd have food from the pizza place or some kind of a diner, and you had to lay it out. Back then you'd lay it out for them. You had to bring the utensils. Grubhub provided it, but you bring all the knives and forks, and knives, forks, spoons, the big stack of napkins. You give them the serving things, and you leave that with them, and they can have those. Usually they end up in a drawer somewhere. Some of these companies probably have 80 of those when they would do it all the time, but we don't provide all that anymore. We just bring the food. But so she was wrong. She's thinking she's making about the same. So now she said she's gonna go look. I think she said today. Now, if she were working for a food company, remember that base rate would start at 20, and her time and a half would be like 30 an hour. So it'd be much, much more. So she is she's going to do that. So what do you think? Driving or retail? Those are the two choices we have here. There's other types of jobs too. Maybe you tutor. Maybe you do whatever. Maybe you're a professional knitter. Maybe you want to do, it's a lot of different, maybe you want to have a different side hustle. Maybe you want to create something or whatever. But anyway, so please, comments down below. Do you do any kind of a side hustle? Do you work retail? Those are the only two things we're talking. We're not talking about being a bank president, of course, or a movie star. Would you rather be a movie star or bring people's food? Of course, you could say movie star. And then remember, also, she has to have insurance. Her car could have a problem if her car goes out. I asked her, if you work in the mall, probably can take a bus if your car breaks down. What are you gonna do if you have a job where you have to drive? You're gonna have to rent a car. And then if she had to rent a car at $30 a day, let's say, and now she's making $60 a day, then it's $30 a day. Can you live off of that? Probably not. So that's just what we're discussing. So please, comments. I need your comments. Please also share with others that might be in the same situation or thinking about going in that same situation. Please share with them. And please, of course, subscribe. Our subscriber rate, I think, is at 5%. I'd like to get that up to maybe 50%, maybe. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Why haven't you subscribed? Boop, 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 boop. It's simply pushing a button. Subscribe. We have a contest coming up where we'll add a little bonus for subscribers. I'm not sure. Or we're thinking about doing a raffle. We have some really big stuffed animals that were donated. They're brand new. Most of them are Gans. Perfect for holiday giving. So we're thinking about doing something where we, maybe like $1 a ticket, and you Zelle the money over, and we show you your tickets. Like maybe hey David, you bought some tickets. Oh great, I bought tickets. Your tickets are number 30 through number 40, and then those all get put into the bowl. The long the strips, and then you would tell them what numbers you had, and then write it down on the thing. So David G, phone number, has tickets 30 through number 40, and then it goes into the thing. Boop, 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 boop. And it'll show the numbers, like the last 4 or last 3. So anyway, have a great day. Take care. This will be out today. Woo, today. That's fast. I better hurry. Take care.